Look, listen. I know you're random, right? But just listen. Just hear me for a minute. Just listen for a minute. Alright? Just listen. Okay, guys, welcome back to the episode 2 of Random Thoughts and Ideas with JAC. I'm so glad to be back here again. Before we start today, I really want to thank all the new subscribers on my YouTube page. I want to thank all of the comments I received, all of the views I got on Anchor and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you very much for your comments. Today, I have a special request. I have some friends that asked me to share a random thought that I shared with them. And I'm happy to do it. It was something that happened to me, a thought that came to me after a meditation during the pandemic around July last year. And I promised them that I would meditate on it some more, to expand some more on it, but can't control how things come to you. So I haven't been able to go further than what we spoke about. As I explained to them, I think is like the first level of that specific random thought. I think it is a lot deeper. So hopefully over the course of time, I could get some more inspiration through my meditations and develop it a bit more. So before I go into that, there's some random thoughts I want to share first. And is this, strange enough, I think that this generation, is it Gen Zs? I think this generation is the best generation of all time. And that might sound strange to a lot of people, but I'm going to tell you why. To be honest, this is the first generation that I am aware of that is self-aware. This is the first generation that I'm aware of that seeks to address things of identity, self-esteem, and mental health. And to be honest, as an 80s baby, I was always taught to come up and keep my feelings to myself. The whole world doesn't need to know that I'm not okay. The whole world doesn't need to know that I'm suffering or that I am going through difficult times. And identity was never a big thing for us. It was never something that was taught to us or enforced in us or was even a conversation. And I think that this generation, and a lot of people like to identify the faults in them, I just want to say that this generation is going in the right direction. And I think it's not going to end in this generation, but the next generation, the Gen A's that are coming up, are really going to benefit from it. And whether it be self-identification in terms of gender, sexuality, how you feel, self-expression, whatever it is, I think is awesome. I think it's very good. I think all things aside, that's the best thing that has happened to the world in a long time. And I think different. I said it before. I think very different. For instance, mental health is something that is new to me. I'll be honest with you. Is a new concept that every day I thrive to understand a bit better. Every day I try to get a bit better at it. But I remember watching the movie Split and Glass. And it was a movie about this guy that had multiple disorder syndrome, schizophrenia. And each personality that he had manifested differently in terms of age, gender, that sort of stuff. And it took on also different physiological aspects. So different heartbeat, different rate of heartbeat, blood pressure, etc. And there were even some studies into that. And I remember, and one of my favorite TV shows is Doom Patrol. And one of my favorite characters, obviously, if you watch Doom Patrol, I don't even have to tell you who it is. But also, a few years ago, one of my favorite radio shows was Alex Jordan Morning Show, now Salt and Gaynell. What drives me crazy, and no, but seriously. And there's a normal character that calls in every morning. She's usually the first person that calls in, and she goes by the name of Sunshine. Now, early up in the show, she was treated, or rather, she was, how can I put this the nicest way possible. The interactions were a lot different. And I remember once Saul asked her to explain this mental health issues or identities, because she did admit that she has multiple personalities. And she said, it depends on what is going on in her life. If there's a need for someone to be aggressive, a hustler, somebody get money, this specific personality by a different name will come forward. If it's something related to, being chill and relaxed, something else comes out. And then the funny, bubbly one is sunshine. I think there was one or two other ones that I can't remember offhand. So I'm saying all this to say that I think the powers that be call this a mental health issue or a sickness or a disorder. But it's quite possible that this could be a form of evolution. From the time I was a child, I was hearing that we only use 10% of our brain's capacity, XYZ. This could be a form of evolution. I could see probably next 50, 60 years, identity crisis and gender identity and schizophrenia might end up being a lot closer to each other than we think. And there might not be a sickness. It might not be a disorder. It might just be something else. And I always tell my friend this: in the 1920s, 1930s, homosexuality was deemed as a sickness and people were medically castrated. It was deemed as a sickness. You were put in a mental institute. So 80 years later or more, homosexuality is a normal thing. And now is the least difficult thing to accept. Because there are people that identify as children. There are people that identify as disabled, that are fully able, but they feel that they are disabled. And it's hard for people to see something and then call it something else, because we are trained to see something and call it as what we interpret it to be. So they got the famous saying, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Well, that's not the case anymore. So it could be a thing of evolution. I think it's a great thing. I think that this new generation is going in the right direction because I think that's what the world needs. I mean, years ago, the issue that was in Barbados is that young Barbadians have an issue with identity and knowing who they are, where they come from, XYZ. But no, this is not the case. The young people of Barbados are bold and they're saying, this is who I am. This is who I think and feel I am. This is who I want to be. And accept me as this. Call me by this. And I think that's awesome. People who are not for it or are against it because of personal reasons, well, that's your choice. What do you think? I think if a person says that, hey, I see myself as X or my pronoun is X, then it's X. What's the problem? I don't know your struggles. I don't know your burdens. I don't know how you feel inside, what you've been through in life. But if you want to be called X, then for me, it's no problem. And at the same time, if you present one way or you identify as something that is not necessarily the norm, then you gotta give people a little bit of time to adjust to it. I'm not talking about, just giving people free passes, but sometimes people might slip up or mess up because it's not in their norm. And you gotta give people a chance to readjust their mindset and don't get upset all the time. But I can leave that where it is because there's another discussion for another time. Okay, so if you see the poster, if you saw the poster and the video on YouTube, the video of this podcast is going to have a poster on it. As I speak, you'll see a poster. And the poster depicts the random thought that I had, right? The random thought was surrounding the idea that in our lives, we have different phases. And in this particular random thought, it came to me in this exact way: 4 main characters that we have in our lives. So the first character is, you will see, the painter. And the second character is the muse. The third one is the viewer. And the last one is the collector. Now, the thing about this thought is that when it came to me, it was very clear. It was like someone just spoke to me and said, this is something that you need to analyze. And one of the things that came to me was also that there are four distinct characters, four separate characters with different phases and aspects. But sometimes in life, you can play more than one character. Sometimes in life, you can transition between characters. But throughout your entire life, there's a repetition of these phases. And the idea is that if you can identify where you are in your life and identify the role you're playing or the character you're playing and adjust if necessary, then you are on your way to being or going in the direction that you really want to go, or serving your true purpose, or living your true self. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to break down each character and explain the purpose of each character, and then we're going to talk about it afterwards a little bit more. So the first character I want to speak about is the painter. So if you look at the poster at the top, you will see the little logo of the painter. But I want you to look at the cycle, and when I designed the poster, I actually just did something I thought would be simple, and then as I kept going, it got more and more complicated, because you could be in one character multiple times. You can go from one character to another character and go back to the first character. You can skip characters. There's no necessarily no distinct order of them. It's all about what's happening in your life, right? And then the more I did it, I realized it looked, and I'm into science, it looks like an atom, a little bit like an atom. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. So I like to call it the the life cycle. I like to call the because it resembles the atom. I call it the atom life cycle. And I think it makes a lot of sense, or it should make a lot more sense when they explain it better, right? And they explain all the characters, they explain the purpose of the characters. So the first character is the painter. Now, when you think of a painter, you think of a guy with an easel and some brushes that's going to create something, right? So basically, that's the idea. The idea is that you are the painter, and you have an idea of what you want your life to be. You have an idea of where you want to go in your life. You have an idea of the goals you want to accomplish. So the character really is the painter, is like the architect, the person that sees the vision. He sees the vision, and what his purpose is to do is to translate that vision, that purpose, that life goal, the direction of life that you want to have. He's supposed to translate that onto the canvas. Now, the painter is you. If that was not clear before, the painter is you. You are the painter. You are the person that has the vision of what you want, the vision of where you want to go, the vision of what you want to achieve in life. That is you. Each character is you. There are one or two characters that necessarily can be someone else, but at the end of the day, it is all about you, the person, right? So this vision that you could have could be from wherever. You could know somebody in your life that you want to model yourself after, or you want to go in that direction. You could use them for ideas. You could help them. They could be your mentor. But at the end of the day, what you translate onto the canvas is always your interpretation. Is always going to be unique. Even if you try your best to copy someone step by step, the journey is always going to be different, because each and every one of us are unique. So the painter is not objective. It's a subjective character, which means it's all about what you think, what you want. What other people think should not be important. Yes, they may play a role in it, but what people think should not be the guiding light was guiding your hand on that brush as that brush goes across the easel. The painter is you, what you want and what you see for your life, and you just need to translate that onto the canvas. So that's very simple. The painter. Now the second character is the muse. So the muse is in normal terms, the muse is the person that sits and poses. However, for the painter, the muse is not aware of what is happening on the other side of the easel. The muse is not privy to the brush strokes on the easel. Now, remember I said the characters are subjective, they're you. Now, the painter has translated his interpretation of what he wants, what you want for life. And you set things in place and you start to do it. This phase of being a muse is trusting the process. You come up with a plan and you start to work. And you have to trust yourself and trust the process of getting to where you want to get. Now, sometimes in our lives, this is also multifaceted because it's not that you're not in control, right? But there are times in our lives where we cannot always be in control. We can be the best at everything, but we cannot do everything ourselves. So at some point in our lives, we have to trust ourselves, our process. We also have to trust other people. I can give you an example. This is the example you used back then. I decided that I wanted to start a fish cake company, just like Legends. And I start making fish cakes and baking bread, and I open a stall. Business is great. Someone say, listen, man, we want one in carrot somewhere else. I go home and build a carrot, get all this stuff, and they open another branch. I can't work all two branches at the same time. I gotta bring on people. I train the people. I tell them how to do it, what you want, what you expect. And they start, and I give them the reins. I have to trust them because I shared my vision with them. I shared the goals that I wanted to achieve and how I want to achieve it with them. And I have to trust them. Another example is you in the world of work and you're doing your job. You know that if you do X, Y, Z, automatically these things put you in line for a promotion or something that you're working towards. Now, you can only control the parts of the bits that are yours. And at some point in time, you have to trust that your boss or the person that oversees your work sees your efforts, and then you are rewarded for your efforts with that promotion or raise a pay or whatever. So at some point in your life, in these situations, you are the muse. You are the person. Yes, you are actively working towards your goal, but there are some things that are beyond your control. There are some things that you cannot move because they're not in your responsibility to move. And if you try to move them, then you mash up the whole show. So the muse is that phase in your life where you are trusting the process. You're trusting the work that you're doing, the efforts that you're putting in. And you're also trusting that these strokes, which are the efforts of the painter, are, I don't want to say perfectly, but they are matching the muse. So the painter, they're painting this muse, this person putting an apple or a pear, and you are trusting that painter that every time that brush touches the easel, that what is coming out on that represents what is sitting in that chair or what's standing on that apple, the muse itself. So is that part in your life where you have to trust the process? You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the people around you, or you have to trust, you just got to trust and keep pushing and going forward because the world keeps turning. Now, in your life, you might start off as a painter, or sometimes you might start off as the muse. You might start in the situations where you cannot control and you have to trust people. And then you have to work backwards and try to get on a position where you can stand on your own, or where you can help someone else. But you got to help yourself first. So that's what I'm saying. You don't necessarily start with the painter. You could start, in this case, you could start with the muse. Some things you're in a situation and you don't know when to move, where to move, how to move. Some things you're just at the will of the world and you have to trust. An example is, let's see, an orphan, someone, a small child. And it's, when you're raising a small child, that child has to trust you. Trust that you're going to keep them safe. Trust you're going to feed them. Trust you're going to do all the things they need to survive in this world. So that was the muse. The next character is the viewer. Now, the viewer is distinctive from the muse. And the distinction is that the muse, as I said before, has to blindly trust the process, has to trust the painter. You have to blindly trust yourself. Trust yourself and the plan that you put in place. Now, the viewer is a little bit different. The viewer is in a very interesting position where they can see the muse and they can see the painter. They are observing the painter's brushstroke on the easel, and they can look to see if those strokes are lining up with the muse, how the muse look, and the pose they're in. And why that's important is that sometimes we have to monitor ourselves. Sometimes we make a plan, sometimes we trust that plan, but there are times where we need to look back at the plan and see if the plan is going in the direction that we want it to go, or we need to make some adjustments. So the viewer is like the evaluator or the monitor that can look to see if the plan that the painter, envision is actually coming to pass and make the adjustments where necessary. So it means now that you're in a position to do some reflection and some inflection. Look inward in yourself and see, what is the goal? Am I doing the things that I need to do to get this goal, this introspection? And then also you're looking outward to see if the situation has changed. So remember, use the example of the fish gate stall. So everybody, are you doing my business? Business is good. Something comes out tomorrow and says fish gate is bad for your health. What you can do? Business shut down. I need now to remember that the goal might have been to be an entrepreneur. The tool I used was fish gates. But you know what? If that's the case, I could do something else. I could turn it into a bake stand. I got everything ready to make bakes or make pumpkin fritters or something. So the viewer is that person that looks to see if the painter's vision is being fulfilled in his actions or his and her in their actions, right? So you are adjusting yourself and your plan. At the same time, you can look at the muse and say, listen, you move from the position you were in. You need to readjust to where you were before. Because if you want to get to this plan, this outcome, this is what you're supposed to do. And you know that this is what you're supposed to do. So the viewer is that person that has the ability to look at the bigger picture, because remember, is you know the bigger picture, and to make adjustments, whether it be based on the outside world, objectivity, or based on subjectivity, the inner side, you, me, that person itself. Now, the final character is the collector. And I think the collector is the ultimate equalizer. So if you think about a collector, someone that collects artwork, they have a very interesting role. And that role is that they put value. They put value to art. Now, the collector is the phase of your life where you analyze your process, you analyze the outcomes, and you evaluate the value of your experiences. Now, a collector pays money based on their personal view, along with the history of art, if you understand what I'm saying. So one of the most famous painters painted something, and it was very pretty, very nice, but their life was going through a very good phase. They were at the height of their career. But then that art that was done in volatile times and times of great struggle, that art might be more valuable. So the collector, you, has the ability to look back at the entire process, at the painter, at the muse, and the viewer, and determine the value of your efforts. This is strictly personal. You are evaluating your value to yourself to see if it was worth it. Now, this part is very deep, And I'm only really touching the surface because in this society, a lot of people base their value on other people, what they have, what other people have, or what other people tell them. Your value cannot be determined by someone else. No one that is not in your shoes, in your position, in your life, have been through the turmoils and stress or the experiences that you have can tell you what you are worth. You have to determine that for yourself. Now, your value is determined on your journey, is determined on the process, the trials, the tribulations, the stress, the sad times, the hard times, and in simple forms as well, that you had to overcome to get where you are. And sometimes you may not be where you are yet, but sometimes it might be important in those dark times to call upon the character of the collector. So you might only be in the muse phase and you might feel discouraged and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. It might be time for the character of the collector to step in and say, listen, this is a good plan. Where you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 minutes ago is far from where you are now. You have a plan. Let's get going. The value of this plan is immense. Or maybe you're just at the painter phase and you got a vision and you can't get past the vision. It might be time for the collector to come in and say, listen, you got a vision. There are people that do not have visions. You have one. Or you might be at the viewer stage where you are looking at the muse and looking at the painter and you're looking at that canvas and you're saying something ain't right, something missing. It might be time for the collector to come and say, listen, this plan, you might want some tweaking, or the muse might want a haircut, but it's got value. This has potential. This has value. And you may not be able to see it, but there's somebody out there that can see it. If you look at some of the most expensive artwork in the world, people want to know if the people was mad to pay the money that they pay for it. But there's a story, there's a history, there's a journey behind it. And I want to say that there's a history, there's a story, there's a journey behind each and every one of our lives and the direction we want to take. So no matter where you are in life, no matter where you want to go, I'm saying to you that if you are able to identify which stage you're in, whether it be the collector stage, the value, the viewer, the muse, or the actual painter, if you can identify where you are in your life and determine if you are the right character at that time, then you are on the right path to living in your truth. Sometimes you might need to be the collector, but you are somewhere being the muse. You cannot see past that anxiety of not knowing when to move, and you cannot see that you need to evaluate and reevaluate. You might be so caught up in looking at the paintbrush and the easel and the muse as a viewer, and you don't recognize that it's time to go back to the paintbrush and make some adjustment. You might be the muse being still and nothing is happening, and it might be time for you to go back to the paintbrush and be the painter or be the collector and assess the value. It all depends on where you are in life. And that was a random thought. I'm not going deeper than that because I'm going to go past the time that I've already allotted and I've gone past that. But I want to say that it's a very simple thought. It was profound when I got it. Almost a year later. It doesn't have the sting that it had, but I still think it's kind of important. And I hope that it helps someone out there. I hope it can inspire someone and maybe just create a thought. You know, it's as simple as that. Create a different thought process. Create a different way and angle to look at things. I'm going to end by saying this. It's a saying that there's nothing new under the sun. And people say that. I don't really go into how deep it is. But no matter what you're going through in life, no matter how hard or desperate things might seem, no matter how confusing you might be, or confused rather that you might be, someone else in this earth, on this planet, in this world, maybe even next door to you, has experienced it. It does not mean it is not valid. It does not mean that it lessens your situation. It means that someone has experienced what you're going through and someone somewhere has made it through and you can make it through too. So just going to recap. Big up all the Gen Zs. When they're doing great, love when they're bad. Mental health is an awesome thing. Evolution. I see it as evolution. The life atom cycle, the painter, the muse, the viewer, and the collector, all very important, all distinctive characters, but you can play more than one character at the same time, or you can repeat a character over and over. You can move from one. It doesn't have to go to that in that order. It can go in any order. It all depends on identifying where you are in your life and determining if you're the person that you need to be to get to the next stage. And sometimes you need to step back. So sometimes you may need to step back to look to see if you're on the same path you wanted to be when you started. Okay, guys, I want to thank you again for listening. This is just number 2. I promise that I'm going to bring some DIY soon, some small clips. Probably going to put them on this channel as well and put them on YouTube. But you can find me on YouTube and on Instagram, RTI with JAC. You can find me, all the links on my Anchor. When I post it, you're going to see it. And I want to thank you guys for being with me again. It's a little bit longer than the last one, but that's it for me. Have a great week. Have a great life. Have a great think. And remember, mental health is extremely important. It's something that you can't ignore anymore. I done know. I say what we had to say. I share my random thought with you. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Make sense?